That's one of the pieces of the puzzle, yes.
Right.
So that's just an example of the things we have to pay attention to start working in hydrogen, because we have to do it safely, effectively, meaningfully. My job as a CEO here is to make sure that we don't go broke because of my hydrogen aspirations.
This is Small Business Celebration, where we introduce you to successful small business owners at their place of business so that you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business and get your next big breakthrough. Welcome to another fantastic episode here on Small Business Celebration. We're going to be talking about how to evaluate the next industry your business is going to diversify into. We're also going to be talking about what to watch out for when scaling your business. And to guide us on this is Ray Miller, the owner of Energy Link. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And for Visioneers who don't know who are you and what is it that you do?
Well, my name's Ray Miller. I'm the president of Energy Link here in Bakersfield. Energy Link is an oil field service company. We've been around for about 25 years, had our 25th birthday earlier this year, and I've been at the helm for the last 19 years of that 25 years.
How did you get into the oil business? Did you just wake up one day and say, you know, that hard hat looks really attractive. I think I'll put it on and go to the field?
Actually, I started in the oil field business when I was about 4 years old.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was a traveling salesman selling oil field products, and as a kid, he would take us out to work every once in a while. So I got to go out and help him sell owls and wonders. That's what he used to call them.
Owls and wonders, what's that?
Well, when you're 4 years old,
it's a wonder.
You hear words different. So it was valves and liners. So pumps have valves and liners, but as a kid, it was owls and wonders.
And what possessed you to make it a career of the oil business? I'm guessing because it was just in the family?
It was in the family. It's what I knew.
Okay.
So when I was going through high school, I had the idea I was going to be a lawyer. And I was the fourth of five kids. Everybody thought that I was going to be the lawyer because I was calling everybody out if they said something wrong or didn't do something right.
Right.
And then when it came time to graduate high school, I just didn't have those aspirations anymore.
You could not handle another 6 years of college.
And I was really close to going to college.
Okay.
I went one day, but that was just to throw a Frisbee out on the grass. It really didn't go inside. I started working for a company called Creole Production Service. I was working as an analyst helper. We would go out and analyze engines and compressors out in various oil and gas fields all throughout the world. I got to go to the North Sea, I got to go to South America, offshore Louisiana, offshore California. It was a great experience for a young man.
What possessed you to buy Energy Link?
So when my handcuff agreement was coming to an end at Universal, I really thought, hey, this is a great company. I could do this. But when I had about a year left, the entrepreneurial blood started waking up.
Sure.
And it was like, oh, now that I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I could tell it wasn't a train. It was, hey, I just had to start thinking what I was going to do. So the first thing, I'm going to take a year off.
Right.
So I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks into that, oil's $100 plus a barrel, and I'm like, no, all this is going on, and I'm on the sidelines. That's just not my style.
Right.
So I decided I was going to get back into business. So I went up to Seattle, Washington, where a good friend of mine lived, and I said, hey, you got to get back into business with me. Convinced his family to let him move down here, and we started a company called RFM Inc.
Okay.
And shortly after we got started, I got a call from Energy Link. And the owner said, hey, would you be interested in buying my company? So it was about a 30-minute drive from my office to his. I was there in 20 minutes. And we swung a deal.
Why did you choose to leave the name RFM behind and take his name, Energy Link?
So Energy Link is a great name for an energy company. I've always loved the name Energy Link. When I worked at Universal, a much bigger company, that Energy Link was a competitor of ours in a lot of areas that we would go to work on compressors.
And you kept hating to lose contracts to Energy Link. Was
yeah,
that it?
Well, I had a lot of respect for Energy Link because they were this small company that did very good work and had a very good reputation.
Sure. What does Energy Link do?
We started off as an oil field service company.
Right.
We had a few mechanics and a few trucks And we had some great ideas on the best way that oil field equipment should be repaired and maintained. So we brought those ideas. We thought we were doing it better than the next guy. And as we started growing, we got into other industries.
And now you're in the hydrogen business.
So now we're in the hydrogen business, yeah.
And what does that entail?
What we love about hydrogen is we feel it is the fuel of the future. When you consume hydrogen, there is zero emissions. As we love our planet more and more and more, that becomes more and more important. So it's like, you know, in Bakersfield, we've been producing energy for over 100 years.
Right.
And my feeling is that 100 years from now, we'll still be producing that energy. There's going to be clean energy. And I'm going to be part of that transition into the clean energies. And when I recognized hydrogen, that's when I said, hey, this is my calling. So I tell everybody I got bit by the hydrogen bug.
Right.
Because it's like a disease.
Okay.
You can't get rid of it.
Sure. Electrification is in, but hydrogen, not so much.
There are people that are scared of it. You might have heard.
You think of the Hindenburg and things like that, right?
You beat me to it.
But that's because they didn't have the safety protocols you have now.
That's right. Hydrogen just, it isn't well known enough, and we don't have the infrastructure out there. I've had a lot of people say, hey, I saw that you did an interview, and I asked, what was I talking about?
Right.
Some of them say nitrogen, so, you know, I give them half credit.
Sure, right, sure, right.
So,
There's a slight difference between nitrogen and hydrogen, but yes.
yeah. So it just, it's not its time yet, but its time is coming in.
20 years from now, will the hydrogen fueling stations look any different than a gasoline station?
They look a whole lot like a gasoline station. Matter of fact, if you get out of Bakersfield, where there is hydrogen stations available to the public, we stopped at several stations this last week. We were on a hydrogen campaign in Northern California. These hydrogen stations, some of them have the hydrogen pumps right next to the gasoline pumps. You just pull and it just looks like it. It just clearly marked that this is hydrogen.
Right.
Of course, the nozzle's different, so it's not going to fit in your car.
Right.
So yeah, it's going to be just like going to a gas station today.
And if you've made the switch to hydrogen and you need a new place for a house to have your hydrogen hookup or near a hydrogen station, might I suggest you talk to Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier agent with Watson Realty, born and raised and never left Bakersfield. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. And Visioneers, if you've got a question, you've got thoughts, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and your question could appear here on Small Business Celebration, just like Nick, who asked, our industry is going through a downturn, and we know it's time to diversify. For those who've made the leap, what did you evaluate before choosing your next industry? Because that's what Energy Link did. You guys were in natural gas and petroleum, and why did you say, yeah, hydrogen is the industry to move into?
So this process is in play right now.
Right.
We have to be careful. So we've recognized that I got bit by the hydrogen bug. Everybody in this company knows that.
Sure,
so it's like, okay, we're the best company to be carrying this flag. And the reason is hydrogen is a gas.
Right.
And we already know gas. We work on gas. Now, it's got its own peculiarities. We have to pay attention to that.
Right.
We work in the energy industry. We're very safety conscious.
But as far as tooling of it, the mechanical part of it, the employee training, how much of that is you're having to change in the company to go into hydrogen, or is there not that much that you have to do?
There is quite a bit you have to do. So it's not just, okay, we're just doing hydrogen now, same guys, same stuff, a little extra training. There's more to it than that.
Right.
Hydrogen generally is going to be dealt with at a much higher pressure than we're used to doing. At Energy Link, we're an ASME code shop, which means we build pressure vessels. And these pressure vessels, we're allowed to build them up to 5,000 PSI.
Okay.
So,
and a pressure vessel is what, for Visioneers who don't know?
It's a steel tank that's designed to hold a product at an elevated pressure.
Okay.
And it's very common.
And if you're used to seeing like welding tanks and things like that, it's that but on a bigger scale.
Yeah, so you're driving down the highways, you'll see the big water tanks like from Arvin Edison Water District that have that funny color green with the red and white tanks. And those are pressure vessels. Those are ASME built vessels. So we're an ASME certified shop.
Okay.
And there's several of them in California. But in hydrogen, you're going to need the ASME vessels, but they have to be at a higher pressure. We've got to be able to store up at 9,500 psi.
Okay.
So we had to get a different certification to go what we call level 2 certification. That gets us up to 10,000 psi. We can test at 15,000, but we can build vessels that are certified for 10,000. There's only 5 companies in the state of California that have that level 2 ASME certification.
And that is where it's at for EnergyLink. That's your piece of the puzzle.
That's one of the pieces of the puzzle, yes.
Right.
So that's just an example of the things we have to pay attention to start working in hydrogen, because we have to do it safely, effectively, meaningfully. My job as a CEO here is to make sure that we don't go broke because of my hydrogen aspirations. So
Your bug that you bit,
yes.
or bug that bit you.
So yeah, so I got to keep it in check, and at the same time, let it grow. And it's a balancing act. I mean, we do what we do very good, and we got to keep doing that, and hydrogen as well. So the other side of that coin is hydrogen hasn't been fully embraced by the public. We still have a lot of infrastructure to build, a lot. So, it's all brand new.
So what you're doing with your business right now is you're actually walking in both lanes.
Exactly. And, there's times where it's just, man, it's a stress on finance, it's a stress on time, and I'm trying not to make it a stress on our resources. And there's times where, hey, do I just walk away? But no, I can't. I got bit.
Right.
I just can't walk away from it. So yeah, the decision that we have to diversify is carefully thought out and being carefully played out.
And yet, when the time comes, you'll be ready for hydrogen.
And we are ready. We've built our first, designed and built our very first hydrogen compressor. It went on a job down in Southern California. It's in a laboratory, and we will be doing the startup and commissioning and putting that unit into service here within the next 30 days. That was
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks for that. That was a big day. It was December 11th of 2024 was when we did the FAT test, the factory acceptance test. And we had the end user customer up here. They had, I don't know, about 10 different scientists and engineers that were involved with this project from its conception. It went really well. It was a happy day for all of us involved. And all the tests passed, and they were really happy with the way everything looked. And we just recently shipped it down, and now we're getting ready for the call to start it up. So we have it on our resume. We're doing hydrogen. We're already in the game. We've already provided that same company with a blending skid for hydrogen and natural gas. We're looking forward to playing more and more in the hydrogen business.
If you could go back in time and buy Apple stock when it was less than $1 a share, you could be a very, very wealthy person right now. How does a business owner take a look at the hydrogen industry and get that less than $1 share opportunity, or start using hydrogen for their business and being able to actually use this and be on the forefront of technology?
So I've had a lot of people come to me, and one of my dear friends who we just recently lost, Steve Barnes, he came to me and said, Ray, I want to take my 401k money and put it in your hydrogen plans and your hydrogen aspirations. And what I told Steve is, hey, man, that means so much to me. And Steve has always been my biggest cheerleader. And I said, I just can't take your money right now. It's not time. Right now, the investment risk is huge.
Right.
But that's why, when Apple's was $1 a share, the investment risk was huge then too.
Sure.
We're in the process here at EnergyLink of developing a prospectus for investing in what we call the hydrogen factory. We don't make hydrogen at the hydrogen factory, we make hydrogen happen.
Oh.
When someone comes to us and says, hey, I want to build a hydrogen refueling station for the trucks and buses that come up and down the road, that's when we're going to say, okay, we're the guys for that. We're going to build all the equipment, we're going to set it in here for you. We're even going to help you get your government grants to do that stuff, because in the early stages, in the early stages of hydrogen, there's going to be a lot of government grants for the people that are engaging early.
But that's the key right there, is getting those grants. Because it's one thing to say, oh, I've got all the engineering and all that other stuff, but you have to have the people that can be the grant writers who know what boxes to tick and what letters to put where and that sort of thing. You're going to be supplying that as well.
we're going to be supplying that as part of our service, yes.
Wow.
We want to make it so it's a no-brainer to use us in your hydrogen aspirations if you're
Right.
building a refueling station. Somewhere along the line I came into the idea, we got to start making money in hydrogen.
Right.
So there's already existing equipment out there.
Right.
We're a service company. We're a boots on the ground company. We got mechanics and welders and technicians and craftsmen. And I said, you know, let's go out and look at these stations that already exist.
Right.
And let's put together the maintenance programs that will keep them reliable. Because that's one of the things we're seeing today. One of the shortfalls is the reliability of the equipment is in a nosedive right now.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to put yourself in a position so that it's not like Golden Empire where they were down for 13 months or something like that.
Yeah, so exactly what we've recognized is that if the equipment can't be reliable, it's not going to continue to move forward.
Right.
And we're the ones that will bring the expertise, the materials, the boots on the ground, the knowledge to keep this equipment running at a 98% and above reliability rate.
And that brings us to the Visioneer Game. Now, Visioneers, if you're not familiar with the way the game works, I have a random word generator here on my phone. I have no idea what the random words the generator is going to create, but more importantly, neither does our guest. And our guest has to take each of 3 words that I give him and somehow associate each word with his business. Now, Ray, you do realize that the fate of the entire hydrogen industry is based on your ability to get these 3 words correct. Are you ready?
We have the right man here.
All right, sounds good. Your first word is rare.
It's a rare day that I don't appreciate all the people that work here at EnergyLink. They come to work to work. We have developed a philosophy here that, hey, if we produce something at the end of the day, we can look back. Our proudest days are the days that we get something accomplished, and the people that work here at EnergyLink get to go home proud every day.
Congratulations, that's 1 for 1. We're off to a great start. Woohoo! Okay, our second word is sentence.
Sentence. So, we love all the people that work here, even though the guys that have to serve their sentence before they get to come back.
Nice, that's 2 for 2. Okay, and our third word is noble.
Noble. Well, we work in the oil and gas industry, and we deal with noble gases.
Nice, that's 3 for 3. Congratulations, the hydrogen world is safe at last. Well done. You were referred to us by Kevin Oliver. And how did you meet Kevin?
I would have to chalk it up to his good luck.
Okay.
We were at a lunch club luncheon.
Right.
And you're just, stand around, you're schmoozing, you're meeting people, and met Kevin Oliver. And he just had a very happy, effervescent attitude about him.
Right.
And we got along. We started talking, and we've become friends ever since.
Regardless of the background you guys have together, right?
It's really cool when you go to these luncheons, you meet people outside of the work area you work in. Kevin works in real estate, I work in oil and gas and hydrogen.
Right.
And so it's really cool to get these outside perspectives. It keeps you fresh.
How did your parents, being entrepreneurs, business owners themselves, help teach you and inspire you to become a business owner, and what lessons did you learn from them?
Yeah, and we all do this growing up. Our parents are our parents. We don't know we're being taught stuff. We're just growing up.
Sure.
And then later on we look at, and we've all had our parents tell us this, well, you'll understand when you're my age.
Sure, right.
So it's kind of the same thing. But looking back, what did happen, it was just okay to work. I mean, we talked about stuff at dinner time, and my parents would get off into their business talks that was born as kids to death. We'd go off and just do other stuff.
Right.
But work was integrated into your life. It was integrated into your relationships with your friends. So many of my friends come from work events. So as an entrepreneur, we might not want to work an 8-hour day, might want to work a 20-hour day. But there's those days where we only want to work a 2-hour day. And it doesn't matter if it's a Sunday or a Monday, just you get that freedom, but at the same point, you can't shake the curse.
Just out of curiosity, right now, per gallon, what's the price difference between diesel and hydrogen?
So it costs you, a car that's going to go 300 miles, 320 miles on a tank of fuel, it costs you about 65 to 70 bucks to fill up today. That same car, to get the same mileage, is going to cost you about 200 to 210 bucks.
$60 for gasoline and 210 bucks for hydrogen.
Right.
And that will come down with time.
It has to. So that's the economic hurdle, which everybody will tell you today, that's the biggest hurdle. We have to make hydrogen affordable.
Not so long ago in the news, there's another refinery up in the Bay Area that's closing, that's shutting down. And that's going to severely impact gasoline production for California, as well as other states. How hard is it going to be for petroleum producers to make the switch to clean hydrogen and be able to bring down the price so that we're not having these price fluctuations with hydrogen like we currently do with gasoline?
Energy will always have price fluctuations. From my perspective, it's kind of healthy. Any stagnant market isn't healthy. Ups and downs, it helps people think. When prices are down, you think different than when prices are up, and so it causes you to think. And we start thinking of ways, hey, how do we even this out?
Right.
Once we even it out, we're not thinking anymore, so it starts getting topsy-turvy. But with hydrogen being as expensive as it is today, that economic hurdle will ultimately be achieved. We have a lot of faith in industry, and we have a lot of faith in our scientists and our engineers to come out with a way to make hydrogen available at an affordable price, at a price that it can compete with gasoline. And once it does, what's going to keep gasoline from saying, well, hey, we got to get cheaper? Once that is achieved, the fact that it has the zero emissions and it's a clean burning fuel is going to drive the first of all, government incentives into the market for hydrogen to be utilized.
Just out of curiosity, is the process for the oil refineries that much different to produce hydrogen from oil than it is to produce gasoline and diesel from oil?
Yes. Hydrogen can be produced out of oil in situ or in the reservoir where it exists naturally.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't actually have to go to a plant. They can actually do it there at the site.
We can do it right on the location. And that's a big cost saver in producing hydrogen, if we're producing hydrogen out of a depleted oil reserve.
Right.
Because that's not the only way to produce hydrogen. As a matter of fact, it hasn't been done yet on a large basis, on a commercial basis. And I've been advocating for that for quite some time. And we had some traction going for a while, and then it just got stopped. If we can successfully produce commercial amounts of hydrogen from a depleted oil reserve, the economic hurdle has been handled. Because we'll produce it at about the same cost as natural gas is produced, which is very cheap, especially as compared to what it takes to produce hydrogen today. Hydrogen today, 90% plus, maybe even 95% of the hydrogen produced today is produced by a process called steam methane reforming, which uses natural gas. We use high pressures, high temperatures, and we coerce the hydrogen, the covalent bond to break to release the hydrogen. That's what makes hydrogen so expensive, is that covalent bond takes so much energy to break. When hydrogen's in your water, it's happy and it's not volatile. So you drink your water and it's fine. But when you break that hydrogen away, it becomes very volatile, thus very valuable.
And that brings us to our second Visioneer question, which is also brought to you by Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier agent with Watson Realty, selling Bakersfield homes since 1992. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. Visioneer Allison asks, having acquired a small operation, we are now focused on scaling. What key factors slipped your notice in your decision as to where to take your business next?
The grass is always greener on the other side.
What happened?
So, well, when you're scaling, you got to realize that, hey, you've developed certain skill sets, and you kind of need to stay in your lane. But at the same point, you need to be pushing the window, maybe widening that lane some. But don't try to get into the movie making business if you're in the oil and gas business.
This sounds like personal experience.
Yes, I tried to get in the movie making business once.
Well, it's the old adage, what's the best way to make $1 million in the film business?
Start
Start
with
with
two.
two. Exactly. But when you were scaling it up, what's some of the things that you discovered as far as personnel-wise and other logistics-wise, and things that you said, you know what, if I knew now what I knew then, I wouldn't have done that?
Yeah. So some of the little things escape you that seem so obvious. For example, just office space. And then you have to buy computers. And then all of a sudden you have to get different licenses because you went over 10 users and then the rules change. It also changes with some of the tax rules and keeping up on that. And then there comes a time where you have to decide, do I need to be doing this? Do one of my other employees need to be doing this? Delegation is not a natural act. It's something that you have to learn and you have to keep learning. And then not just delegating within the company, but when do you start outsourcing and let your talents within your company be best utilized?
How did you learn these lessons?
By making the wrong decisions.
Okay.
You know, I've learned a lot more from studying people's failures than their successes, even though I studied both.
Right.
But it's the failures that we learn the most from.
How are you encouraging or helping to change the minds of environmentalists who don't like anything in the petroleum industry, that yes, it's okay to have the petroleum industry as a partner to help bring a cleaner burning fuel?
Well, in California especially, the petroleum industry has been very concerned with the environmentalist concerns.
Right.
And in the petroleum industry, we behave that way. We are very concerned. We take care of this planet. But what you said is true. It's always an uphill battle, and we feel like people just on the environmental side don't want to listen or even give credit where it's actually due. I mean,
Right.
they're being listened to. We do a lot in this industry based on what they say, and we believe a lot in what they say. There's a lot of environmentalists that work at these big oil companies just for that reason. And so why wouldn't you want people that know how to manage energy at a big level? Why wouldn't you want them in charge of the energy of the future? I would.
You've mentioned that in order for hydrogen to move forward, it's going to take a fair amount of governmental investment to make it happen. At what point does it need to shift from being governmental investment and become private sector investment?
It's a new fuel, and we talked about the economic hurdles. We have to have the government help incentivize private industry to make investments. It can't be 100% government.
But you've got companies like Chevron and ExxonMobil and Shell. They have a lot of money.
And they also get a lot of government subsidies to engage in these type of activities.
Okay.
And a lot of people want to get mad at them for when you got a lot of money while you're getting government subsidies, because, hey, we're going to spend some of our money in this as well, but we need the government subsidies. Otherwise, we're going to spend our money elsewhere, because private business, their money has to work for them. So they say, hey, the government says, hey, we're going to pitch in 50%, let's use that as a number, if you will. We'll put in the same size chunk of money you do, you put your brain power to work on it and get it to come. Then the idea is to get the price down, get that economic hurdle handled. Once it's down, then the government starts peeling back and says, okay, now that you've got it where it can compete, you're the business, you work in the world of competition. It doesn't mean they go away, because then they'll also offer incentives to help all the investments you put in, to say, hey, so the government isn't the bad guy here. The big business isn't the bad guy here. We need both of them to come together, put their minds and their money together to come up with what we all need. We all need affordable energy, and we want it to be clean.
In your mind, where is that point where the government has put in enough investment and needs to start backing up?
When it's successful, that point is when the prices come down. So generally, when they're getting these government grants, there's a charter involved, and you have to stay within the guidelines of that charter. You have to do this, this, and this. You're not allowed to go out of it. You want to, because you start getting other ideas when you start working here. You start thinking out of the box, and then you get in trouble.
Right.
So when is it time to come out? It's when the prices get down, or they've got to a point where they said, hey, our money isn't really helping the prices come down anymore. Now we're just helping somebody's business get rich. That's not the purpose of the government funding, nor should it be.
It's no secret that there's a lot of business owners right now that are struggling. What do you say to those business owners to help let them know that not all hope is lost, or there's a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train?
So if you're paying attention, if you're paying attention to business, you can see what needs to be done. Sometimes it's not always fun to have to do it, but you have to pay attention. But if you're paying attention, you'll get through it. You know, if we didn't have the bad days, we wouldn't recognize the good days. And now when the bad days are here, there's been many times where I've talked to my daughter and just said, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I don't know what I'm gonna do next. Right. And you know what I did? I got up and went to work the next day and just got immersed in it. And the solutions come. You gotta pay attention, you gotta be engaged.
Ray, this has been a real treat. Thank you for joining us here on Small Business Celebration.
It has been a treat. I've enjoyed this session.
If Visioneers want to reach out and get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Well, we're on LinkedIn. You can go to my name, Ray Miller, or just go to EnergyLink. You can find us there. We have a website, www.energylink1, that's the number 1.com. And you can always call us. We still answer our phones here. That's 661-765-4444.
And after a brief message from Scott Garrison and Plaid Nexus, we're going to be talking about wondering if you'll ever get started. I'm going to come right back.
Thank you, Michael. Employee stock option plans, or ESOPs as they are known, are great for companies with a minimum of $2 million in net income. Although they are rare, they can be great for business owners that want to reward their loyal employees and save on taxes. Visit my website, plantexits.com, to learn more.
Wondering if you'll ever get started. There's the old Aesop's fable that we're all very familiar with, the tortoise and the hare. You know, the story where the tortoise boasts that he's faster than the hare, so the hare takes him up on the boast and challenges him to a race. They both line up and off they go, and as the rabbit leaps forward and leaps ahead, it gets shiny object syndrome and starts going off and looking at other kinds of things everywhere else. And by the time he realizes that the race is still going on, the tortoise has finished the race and won. And of course, the moral of the story, slow and steady wins the race. But there's another part of the story that I think often gets overlooked. You see, I grew up in Ridgecrest, California, the home of the Mojave Desert. There, in fact, a family friend of mine had a sanctuary for California's state reptile. And one of the things I've noticed about a tortoise is that even though it does go in a straight line, its head is constantly looking left and right, up and down, whether it's for food or for, things that want to eat it. So the tortoise also has the propensity for shiny object syndrome, just like a rabbit does. But the difference is it takes a lot more effort for a tortoise to change direction. And it's slow compared to a rabbit, obviously. But one of the things also about the tortoise is that it takes victory in every step it takes. It doesn't take it for granted as it moves forward. And I was going through a period not that long ago where it just seemed painfully slow for us to get to our goal. Oh my gosh, it was like I was even wondering if we were even not just win the race, but finish the race. And then I realized it's all about the single steps, taking victory in every single little step. What is it that I'm doing today? What is it that you are doing today? Even if it's just one small step to get towards your goal. The step that you need to take, not just to finish the race, but to win the race. And know that you have taken that step to get started. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week here on Small Business Celebration, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow strong and profitable business. And I'll see you here again next week when we celebrate another small business making a big breakthrough.
Do you need a college degree to get into hydrogen? Well, I don't have one. I've been in it for a while, but it certainly doesn't hurt. What's helped me learn a lot about hydrogen is I've surrounded myself by a lot of very smart people who do have college degrees that know a lot about hydrogen. Hydrogen fuel station in the future will look much like a gas station looks today. You'll see moms and their kids come driving up in a van. They'll get out and they'll fuel their fuel into the van and they'll go off their happy way with not a care in the world. The difference between hydrogen and electricity is produced mostly in this country using fossil fuels. Hydrogen can be produced by using solar power, wind power, or other alternative fuels. Hydrogen is the fuel of the future because it burns clean. It's great for our environment and this planet that we love. Do you like power? Hydrogen's got a lot of power. Do you like clean? Hydrogen's got a lot of clean. And as a young man growing up in this world, you're going to appreciate hydrogen today. Hydrogen is better than gasoline because, first of all, we don't need a catalytic converter, which becomes solid pollution, to help make the gas burn cleaner, even though it doesn't burn perfectly clean. Hydrogen burns perfectly clean and only leaves water as a residue. Here's 3 things that you, the public, need to know about hydrogen. 1, it is the cleanest burning fuel known to mankind. 2, it is very abundant. It is one of the most abundant elements on this earth. 3, it's very powerful. Here's one thing that I didn't know about hydrogen until I started studying it a lot. It's got a covalent bond, and that bond is very strong and very tough to break. And it takes a lot of energy to free it up to make hydrogen become very strong for us.